What's going on, my friends? Dr. Bruce back in the house here for another edition of the Solopreneur Movement podcast. Every week, I try to come into your life with something that I believe will move the needle for you personally or professionally as a solopreneur. A solopreneur is any individual person that is solely in charge of their sales, their service, their marketing, and all of this is a mindset, right? I'm assuming that you're some type of salesperson or business owner. Now, getting into today's topic, I want to tackle this concept or this word of prospecting. Prospecting is probably one of the most overused and misunderstood words when it comes to sales, when it comes to business. And I truly believe that any business owner, at some point, you are going to need to proactively prospect. What do I mean by proactively prospect? Proactive means you cause it to happen rather than waiting, right? So when you're brand new in your business, you probably don't have leads. You might not have a big database. You might not have a big pipeline. And so you need to proactively go out there and quote unquote prospect, okay? Now, I do want to tackle this big misunderstanding, the big lie of what is prospecting rather than lead generation. I think there's a big misunderstanding when it comes to those two things, okay? So when people hear prospecting, most of the time, they think about cold calling, right? They immediately get kind of clammy hand. They start to sweat. Because they think that they're going to pick up the phone and just start quote unquote dialing for dollars and just calling complete strangers. And oh my gosh, will you use me, right? Can you use my services? And so that's not really what prospecting is. All right. However, the other part of this is they think about prospecting and they just think about lead generation, where it's literally just leads coming into them, and then they answer the phone or they call somebody back if they missed the call. And that's not what prospecting is either. All right. The truth lies somewhere in the middle when it comes to prospecting. Now, why is it important to understand this? Because on the solopreneur side, right, you have to be willing to go first. You have to be willing to make the initial contact, to try to set the appointment, to conduct the appointment, to quote unquote make your pitch and identify how you can solve their problems just as good, if not better, than anybody else out there. And the reason this is so important is because people use the first person they talk to 67% of the time in business. All right. So if you're not initiating conversations, I promise you that somebody else will, that is out there. And most entrepreneurs get this part of it wrong. They just simply want to wait. They sit inside their office and they're a secret agent. They hope people call them. And I go back now almost 10 years ago when I moved from Nashville, Tennessee to Denver, Colorado to launch 90 Day Sales Manager, my coaching business and my speaking business. I didn't know a single person in that market. So I moved from a market where, I'm used to being the lead salesperson for somebody else's company. We have a huge database. We have an amazing brand and reputation, to moving to a market where I don't know anybody and I have to start completely fresh. All right. So there's three areas that I have learned when it comes to proactive prospecting that I want to help break down for you all today. All right. Number one, it is, again, understanding what is the difference between prospecting and lead generation. I'd like to give words meaning. If you follow me, if you listen to my podcast, if you've heard me speak, I really like to take complicated things and try to reduce them to the ridiculous, as one of my old mentors, Dan Elam, used to say to me, right? And so I want to give words meaning. And so prospecting versus lead generation, that's part number one. Part number two, key point number two, is helping you define what is a target market. You might have heard the concept, there are riches in the niches, right? And so I want to break that part down for you. And then I want to just teach you the actual system. What I've learned is most of the time, business owners, salespeople, performers, right? For me, having a PhD in human performance, a lot of people just like to be told what to do. They like to have a framework that they can go be accountable to, and then maybe they tweak it based on what works best for them. Okay, so getting into part number one here, prospecting versus lead generation. Lead generation is another word for attraction. And trust me, y'all, I want you to not really have to go quote unquote lead generate, because you have amazing marketing, you have a brand reputation, and you just have leads that are coming into you every single day. But the reality is, again, for a lot of you, that might not be the case. So lead generation, I just think of that as being a person of influence, is you have already built an attractive business. And so maybe you're putting out content like this. You're putting out social content. You're putting out things through social media. You're attending events. You're hosting events. You're speaking at events. You're attending networking events, right? And you just really have that heart of a teacher approach when it comes to your marketing. And because of that, you have leads coming in. Now, listen, I think that's an important strategy for anybody that's out there. Even if you are brand new or you have to proactively prospect, one of my biggest strategies, again, when I moved to Denver, not knowing anybody, was this lead generation piece where I just asked myself, how can I make myself more attractive? And I did a lot of my number one lead generation strategy was speaking showcase events. Speaking showcase means I'm just going to go speak for free, showcase my abilities, and hopefully I attract leads and lists and datas and people through it that way. Okay. However, in order for me to proactively get in front of those speaking opportunities, I still had to be proactive in my prospecting, meaning I had to figure out who are the branch managers at the mortgage companies, who are the managing brokers at real estate companies, who are the decision makers at the title companies, who are the main people at the insurance companies. And so, who are the main people at these conferences, at these events. And so proactive, and we're going to talk about creating your list and your target niches. But I mean, it really does start there first, is you need to proactively understand who are the niche of people that you want to go after. Where are these lists of names of people out there? And then proactive prospecting simply means you're going to make an initial contact to set the appointment, to conduct the appointment. All right. And so that is what prospecting is. It's just simply, I like to call it a help list mindset, right? So again, there's a difference between attraction versus pursuit. Yes, we all want to build an attractive business, but starting out, you most likely need to pursue because your pipeline is empty. Your database is empty, right? You don't have a lot of contacts. And so therefore you just need more at bats. You need more conversations. All right. So the helpless mindset, and this is part of my selling system that we coach in 90-day sales and accountable CRM, is there's helpless. You have your fight club, you have your new clients, your promoters, and your advocates. That's the primary sales cycle for anybody that's out there. Well, the helpless, it really is like my new targets or the leads that come in. Everyone starts on my help list until I make the initial contact, set the appointment, and then conduct the appointment, right? And then give my actual pitch. So for you, when it comes to your helpless and targeting, it really is that, to help you overcome call reluctance, I have warm lists of people and I have hot lists. All right. And I know this is going to sound, kind of, I would say cliche, but, kind of lame for me to put it this way. But, the mindset for me is my warm list are my prospects, my targets. And I call them warm because in today's world, you have data, you have information. There's a reason I'm reaching out to you in the first place and why I think I can solve your problems just as good, if not better than anybody else out there, even if you don't know who I am. So I call that my help list, and I call that warm leads, right? Or excuse me, warm targets. And then of course your hot lists are more like the leads that come in because they reached out to you in the first place. All right. So the helpless mindset really is, man, I think I can help anybody out there through my services, right? Especially for my target markets of people that are out there. And so that really helps me overcome call reluctance. Even if it's a name of a person who doesn't know who I am, I'm reaching out to them for a reason. And I go into that conversation. As soon as I pick up the phone, I think I can help you, man. I don't know. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk through and really do that discovery part of it. And that, again, helps me with my own individual call reluctance. If you truly believe that you're calling to help solve their problems, you're calling to help add value to their life, it becomes a whole lot easier rather than I'm calling them to sell them. Okay. And we're going to talk through this process as well. Is a lot of people get it wrong because when they make that initial contact or they have that first conversation, they think it's going to be a one call close, and that's not the case either. And so I just alleviate the pressure. The whole purpose of the initial contact is obviously just to present an idea or an offer to that person. All right. So this gets into the second point, which is defining your target market. All right. So I mentioned this earlier. There's riches in the niches. When you're going out there and you're thinking, man, I'm going to solve everybody's problems, you really do need to kind of hone that in. And I can give my personal example of this. When I launched, going back 10 years ago now, I really thought I was going to be a performance coach primarily for real estate agents. And then, after the first year or two, I really started to realize, who I really enjoy working with are loan officers and financial advisors, right? Because I just enjoyed working with them. I can go through a whole litanies of reasons as to why that is. And so, you know what? Maybe your target market is going to shift. Maybe you say, I think this is my target market. And then over time, you start to really realize, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm starting to get more traction over here. But you have to start somewhere. You have to really start to understand your client avatar. If I get specific into industries, maybe I focus on my mortgage friends, right? So your target market for a mortgage loan officer is typically going to be what? Somebody that's maybe a first-time home buyer. And, why would you want to target first-time home buyers? Maybe they're very grateful for the advice that you give to them. Their one deal isn't going to be worth one deal. It's going to be worth 5 to 7 additional deals over the lifetime of those deals. So that might be just a target market. Hey, I really want to work with first-time home buyers that are in, I was going to say, what industry am I thinking of here? Medical services, right? Or sales or device services, medical device service sales. It really could be like you get so niched into the exact type of first-time home buyers. All right. And again, it's not to say you're only going to work with that group of people, but that allows you now to get very specific with the types of referral partners that you maybe want to reach out to, but obviously the types of things that you're going to do from a marketing standpoint to make yourself more attractive for that niche of people. Right. So just thinking through, like when you're defining that target market, like, yeah, man, get deep, get very narrow into the exact type of people, and again, I'll share my own personal experience when I launched Accountable CRM, for instance, right? Over the last couple of years, the reason I launched that is when I started to really work with a lot of credit unions and community banks, and I went to plug our accountability software into their existing mortgage CRMs, the majority of them did not have a mortgage CRM, right? The IMBs and the brokers, they undoubtedly have CRMs, especially at the IMBs where the company level is typically saying, hey, the reason that you want to come work at this independent mortgage bank is because we're going to provide these different tools and resources for you. But at the credit unions and the community banks, they might have branches, they might have leads that are coming into them, but they are maybe a little bit more behind when it comes to a software like a mortgage CRM. And so that really became a niche for me. Well, now I can wake up every single day and say, who are the top 500 credit unions, when it comes to mortgage? And then from there, okay, well, who's the director of mortgage lending? And then even from there, I started to realize the main decision makers are actually the CLOs and the CEOs. So I might start with the directors of mortgage, but I understand that I really need to be selling this to these other different types of people. All right. But you can see how I hone in on my exact target market of people. And now every single week, proactive prospecting wise, I have 3 to 5 people every week that are targets. Maybe they know who Dr. Bruce is or they don't, right? Like hopefully they do because of all the different things, again, from a marketing standpoint and a reputation standpoint that I do to increase my brand awareness and all that kind of stuff. But when I'm going up against these other top 3 to 5 other CRMs, they've heard of them. Right. And so I need to make sure when I'm going into making that initial conversation or that contact, I can clearly define my target market and going into those conversations. Okay. So when you're thinking about defining your target market, there's the actual main decision maker or consumer of your products. And then the second layer that might be more of like the referral partners that are going to be driving those different types of consumer leads to you. Right. Again, sticking with my mortgage friends, what is the instance that, like, typically, your main referral partner source are probably going to be real estate agents, right? When I get to go ready to go buy a home, first thing I want to do is hire a real estate agent. That real estate agent might now start to show me different homes, properties, all that kind of stuff. But then they're going to say, well, you need to get pre-qual or pre-approved. Here's a lender you need to go do that for. Right. And so all of you are going to have a primary referral partner source as well that you're going to need to really lean into. Okay. So key point number 2 is defining that target market. And then over time, you're really going to start to realize the people that you enjoy working with. Okay. And I mentioned that earlier, but I do think that's a big part of this. Do I enjoy working with these people? Do I enjoy prospecting with these people? Do I enjoy serving these people? Do I enjoy growing with these people? Right. And then from there, you can really go a whole lot deeper into the third part of this, which is the probability, right? So eventually you're going to start to realize sales is a numbers game. It is a game of probability. All right. So when we're talking about there's riches in the niches, yes, there's a reason for that. But then you can really start to hone in on the exact systems on how you make that initial contact, on maybe how you show them social proof, on maybe how you show them your competitive advantage, right? So these are all steps with your actual pitch and your marketing. But as you start to really go into key point number 3, sales is a game of probability. Sales is simple on paper, but it's not easy. What do I mean by that? Everyone's like, Dr. Bruce, my business is unique. Yes, there are nuances in every business. All right. But the reality is every salesperson starts out with something like this. Again, a lead comes in and you make the initial contact and try to set the appointment to conduct the appointment, right? In terms of prospecting, it's the same concept, whether it's a lead that comes in or whether you're saying, hey, I need to make the initial contact to get on this person's radar to start to warm them up to set the appointment to conduct the appointment. All right. Now, prospecting, that cycle might take 90 days to get that first meeting to make, rather than somebody raises their hand, the lead comes in, and it makes within, a week, or makes within 24 hours, or makes within an hour, right? That's the big difference that a lot of salespeople can't wrap their minds around, or they don't have the staying power when it comes to targeting people. What I am telling you right now, if you can learn how to build an attractive business where you have leads coming in, but you can also learn how to proactively prospect and target new people when other people are not willing to do that heavy lifting and understand that lag cycle, then you are going to be in the top 1%. Okay. So that is the sales is a game of probability. Point number 3 is the system on paper is easy. It really is. You make the initial contact to conduct the appointment, or to set the appointment, and then you obviously prep for the appointment, and then you conduct that appointment. So you have different talking points going into that meeting. You have your pitch mastered, but you make it about the discovery, right? We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You're asking questions, but I do believe in today's world, you need to be interesting yourself. Okay. And so that whole process, again, that might take 30, 60, 90 days just to finally get that first meeting to make. All right. Now, in order to increase the probability of that first meeting to make, this is the system that I like to follow. All right. So when I make the initial contact, I'll be honest, I don't like to pick up the phone and quote unquote, again, cold call / warm call. I like to typically send out an email or a social media message. And a lot of you are like, oh my gosh, that does not work. It works for me. I have just found if I send an email or a social media message first, and then if they don't reply to that, if I call them within 24 to 48 hours to say, hey, you know what, I just want to let you know that I sent you an email, it might have went to spam. Or again, I sent you maybe a message on social media. I saw that we have mutual connections, and I just want to reach out to let you know on how I'm helping other people just like you do X, Y, Z, right? Are you having problems or challenges with this, and this? Okay. And a lot of you are going to like, well, they don't answer the phone. Okay, well, that goes to voicemail. And then from there, again, same concept is I might now give it a week from that call. Because again, you're proactively targeting. This is different than a lead. This is you targeting, which means you don't want to be a nuisance. You don't want to be annoying. You're playing sort of that long game with them. All right. So initial contact, email / phone call, or excuse me, email / maybe social media message, 24 to 48 hours later, a phone call, right? And then maybe a week later, it is a text. And then a week after that, it's going back to email, social media, phone call, text. All right. And so that's really the thought process for me is for the first month, I'm going to go back every single week. And then from there, if I don't get any responses whatsoever, it might be once a month for the next 90 days. And then after that, it might be once a quarter. All right. And you know what? I might add them to my drip campaign. I might add them to my newsletter. I might start inviting them to the events that I attend or that I host, right? Just depending on their situation. So that's where I'm going, and I'm doing what I call activation events, right? The speaking events, my customer client appreciation events. And so I just continue to go back again and again and again. And eventually, like, they reply and I'm not interested. No, thank you. And then, okay, cool. Is it of value for you to continue to be on my monthly newsletter or my quarterly newsletter about how I update people on this? All right. So that is my actual system that I just shared with you, because if you know by now, I'm a habits and systems person. right? So key point number 3 is sales is simple, but it's not easy. It is a game of probability. All right. So on paper, it really is. You do this step, you do this step, you do this step. And I'm trying to help take the emotion out of it. Okay. Because when you think about sales, it can be overly emotional. When you call somebody and they say, don't call me back, or when somebody expresses interest and then they ghost you for 3 months, right? I mean, there's a lot of emotion that goes into this. So I'm just trying to help take the emotion out of it when it comes to the actual outcome. So as long as I'm doing what I should be doing, I'm leading with that helpless mindset, that heart of a teacher approach to all of this. I'm not afraid to reach out to people and go the distance with them. All right. And so, I love emotion in business and sales because it means that you care. And, but don't get overly emotional. Passion is just misguided enthusiasm, right? Don't lose your enthusiasm for your products and services, but also don't take it personally if you call somebody and they're like, hey, it's the middle of the day, I have something going on, I don't want to talk right now, or they ghost you, right? And all that kind of stuff. So I hope this topic, this concept really helps all of you when it comes to what is prospecting, what isn't prospecting, what is the difference between prospecting and lead generation, right? The helpless mindset, man. I think I can help anybody out there. I don't know until I actually have the conversation. And so therefore, I'm not afraid to go the distance. As long as I truly believe in my heart of hearts, I'm here helping other people. I'm trying to serve other people, right? The entrepreneur who wins asks this question every day: who can I help solve the biggest problems that they have right now in their life, personally or professionally? Not who can I close, not commission breath. Okay. Now, again, I do understand, especially early on in your business or when the market shifts and it's hard out there and you're like, I need that next paycheck. This concept can be hard for a lot of people because you're just like, where's my next deal coming from? Where's my next deal coming from? Where's my next deal coming from? Rather than the actual nurturing prospect that is probably going to require you when it comes to new targets and proactively prospecting. So as always, I hope you guys really enjoyed this podcast episode, the Solopreneur Movement Podcast. If you're interested in coaching, I have a 90-day sales manager bootcamp that we go a whole lot deeper into concepts like these. And of course, if you need an accountability software with a CRM built in, then please do reach out to us. More than happy to set up a demo and go through that part of it. So go out there, continue to be proactive in your prospecting. Proactive means you cause it to happen. Prospecting simply means there's a group of people out there right now who need or want my services. And I just want to make that initial contact to try to set the appointment, to conduct the appointment. And I can't be concerned with all the negatives, emotional things that goes into that process. Thank you.